East Hampton Town Board, we are live, being recorded and being streamed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, and good morning and welcome everyone to the October 1st, 2024 Town Board Work Session. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Present. Present. Present.
Present. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to open today's meeting with the public portion, and we ask you to kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes because we have a very hefty agenda today. I believe there's 8 topics on. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the public portion. So if there's anyone here, is there a list, Carol, of folks that have signed up?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. The first up is Vicki Littman. Welcome, Vicki.
Good morning, Town Board. I wear many hats in the community, but today I'm a resident of Amagansett. I'm here to submit petitions that have been signed by 233 residents in East Hampton Town. This petition was created in response to the closing of the Cranberry Hill Road Bridge in 2023. This was a community effort to get these signatures. To date, the MTA's response has been that the necessary bridge repairs required for its reopening are not allocated in the MTA's budget. The closure of this bridge has resulted in area residents being redirected through Abrams Landing Road at the intersection near the Amagansett Railroad Station, intensifying existing safety concerns at this already treacherous location. So the residents of East Hampton urgently request that you contact the MTA immediately to prioritize repairs and allocate necessary funds in the 2025 budget. And they're starting in their budget now. They're doing it, obviously. So I already mailed these petitions to Governor Hochul and Assemblyman Fred Thiel, asking them also to reach out to the MTA and help in getting this bridge repaired. I did look at the website for the MTA, and it looks like it says where our operating budget dollars come from. The largest share of MTA revenue, $7.222 billion, comes from dedicated taxes and subsidies the authority receives from cities and states that we serve. So I asked a couple attorneys, and they said, yes, there is an MTA surcharge for all of Long Island that goes directly to the MTA, and some categories of East Hampton taxpayers pay their share. So they said that the town would have legal claim to force the MTA to repair the bridge and keep it open. So we're asking you just to do what we can, you can to help us get this bridge open. It's more than an inconvenience to the residents. It's a safety issue right now. Bicyclers are going over it regardless, it's supposed to be, closed off. You have kids, when I went there to look at the bridge, kids were going over the bridge. So we're just asking that you help.
Great, thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Next up is Betsy Petrosky.
Good morning.
Good morning, Betsy.
My name is Betsy Petrosky. I want to congratulate the town board for the award received Saturday afternoon from the Village Preservation Society for the renovation and preservation of the Fowler House on Springs Fireplace Road in our Freetown neighborhood that began in 2016, that was funded by the late Ben Kopinski. At that time, it was the intention of Mr. Kopinski to donate the St. Matthew's Freetown Chapel that was moved in 1976 from its original location on 3 Mile Harbor Road in Freetown up to the Maidstone Marina in Springs that Mr. Kopinski then owned as East Hampton Point. Unfortunately, that never came to pass after Mr. Kopinski's passing in 2018, and subsequently the East Hampton Point changed hands in early 2021 before the town was able to work with his estate about returning St. Matthew's Chapel to its rightful home in Freetown. Remarkably, This chapel is still intact, and many of its interior and exterior original design and architectural elements remain, though currently the building is being used for a small fitness center for the resort's guests. Back in early June of this year, I met with Tara Kuby from Preservation Long Island, who visited the site and the historic chapel, and we both agreed that it was a miracle that this beautiful little chapel was saved, moved, and restored almost 50 years ago, but that it still needs protection from any possible structural changes or destruction while not in the town's care. 2 weeks ago, Preservation Long Island sent a letter of recommendation with support for the town board members to vote to give St. Matthew's Freetown Chapel local historic structure designation status to protect and preserve this chapel, historic chapel, while it is in its current location. I put together some packets for each board member to further support this initiative with past and current photographs, a brief history of the chapel that was built in 1852, written by Liz Marigold, historian at St. Luke's Church and the author of the book, St. Luke's, Where God is Loved, that includes a more detailed review of St. Matthew's history. With that, I asked Liz to join me here today to talk for a few minutes about the history of St. Matthew's Freetown Chapel and its importance to our town's local history. Thanks.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy.
Yep, I'll leave it for her. Thank you.
How are we doing? Good morning. How are you? Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Betsy. Liz Marigold. Welcome, Liz.
Good morning. I'm Liz Marigold. I'm the historian of St. Luke's Episcopal Church in East Hampton Village, and I'm on the executive committee of the East Hampton Historical Society. But I'm also coming today to represent quite a few people that have been advocating for the preservation of St. Matthew's, including Prudence Carabine, Betsy, some Montaukets, actually Peter Van Scoyak and Kathy Burke Gonzalez. So I'm not going to go over the whole history, just to tell you that a local couple gave the land, very small piece of land on Springs Fireplace Road, 3 Mile Harbor, right at the start, 750 square feet of land, and they gave it to a woman from Queens named Elizabeth Pell and said, you have 6 months to build a chapel for religious purposes. And if it falls out of that, if it's not used for religious purposes, it should come back to the owners. She got it done in 1852. And the unique thing about this chapel is also the unique thing about Freetown, is the diversity. There was a Black couple and their children that lived on one side of the chapel. There was a white couple on the other side, and actually across the street there were a Montaukett family. So that's quite unusual. There are a couple of other chapels on Long Island, like St. David's AME Zion Church in Sag Harbor, but they only had parishioners from 2 of the 3 groups. They didn't have the local white settlers. So St. Matthew's is basically a unique property. And it was famous for the Stephen Talkhouse Pharaoh funeral in 1879. And I don't know if you know this, but the coffin was paid for by the town of East Hampton. So you were involved then. In 1968, it was the last service at Christmas. And St. Luke's was sort of hoping that that family that gave the land would come back and say, okay, we'll take the chapel, because the congregation had dwindled down. It didn't happen. They couldn't find the Walstein family. And so Dick Sage sort of stepped in and rescued it. Now, the folklore tale is that he wanted to have a mariner's chapel so that people could come and pray before they went out to sea from 3 Mile Harbor. That's all folklore. He worked with the town of East Hampton on a site plan to create a historic village. And he wanted St. Matthew's to be sort of a motel, divided into three rooms. But when he got it there, people started coming from all over the community and saying, hey, I recognize that. I worshiped there as a child, or my parents were married there. And they started bringing him altar cloths and prayer books and everything. And then somebody said, can I use that for a funeral? And he said yes. And he ended up doing 14 or 15 funerals, as well as 30 plus weddings in this little chapel. And then, well, you know the story. It was sold to Krupinski, Jerry Della Femina, and Larry Dunst. And they were using it as an office. Then it's been resold and used as a Peloton sanctuary. But the thing is about this chapel is you can move it, you can strip it, you can paint it, you can do whatever you want to it. And somehow, if you went there, it retains an aura of peace, of reflection, and I think that's why it deserves your protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Next up is Prudence Carabine. Welcome, Prudence.
Thank you, Kathy. With the gravitas that comes with my name, Prudence Talmadge Hamilton Carabine, 1648, 13 generations, including my children and my grandchildren and my godson. I ask you, please, to take our wish for the chapel seriously. As many of you know, I have generations of people who fought for this country, some of whom died for this country from the very, very beginning of what America meant to the world. And it is my firm belief that if we think of the heart of East Hampton as being Springs, Main Beach, Town Pond, any other place you wish to name, the soul of East Hampton is Freetown, because Freetown is the place where the town got built out of. When we had people come to Freetown from 1648 on, they were looking for religious freedom. Those are my ancestors. When they came in 1820, after they were released from slavery all over the town of East Hampton and, of course, Gardiner's Island, they were looking for freedom and the ability to work for whom they wanted, and the ability to have their children where they wanted to have them, and to interact with those they wanted to. And then the sad story of the Montaukets we all know. They were forced out of their native land. And so we had three cultures side by side, worshiping in the chapel, playing in the chapel, enjoying each other's company in the chapel. And that's why Benny Krupinski came, or I went to Benny. He always called me doll. I hated that. And he said, well, I live next door. We got to do everything we can for that chapel and for the Fowler House, which he did. And some of you may remember, I know you do, David, the day he put the plane into the sea, Ray Harden was working in that Fowler House to bring that building back to a museum status building, which I hope you can do something about someday. I just want to say the soul of East Hampton is in Freetown. Thank you.
Thank you, Prudence. Next up is Len Green.
Good morning.
Good morning, Len.
I'm Len Green, East Hampton town resident, and I'm also founding or co-founding member of Change Hampton, and a co-founding member of the the South Fork chapter of Ruan, Long Island. And I'm here today to talk about the proposed meadow of grassland that Change Hampton will be talking about shortly. East Hampton has an opportunity to become a model municipal landscape. Grasslands are highly attractive and ecologically valuable, not only as habitat for our disappearing bird populations, but also for the hydrological health of our surface and groundwaters. 18th century maps show that they once covered large swaths of the East End. Today, sadly, the most popular landscaping grasses are invasive non-natives. They escape our properties and threaten our native ecology. Take a walk in the Grace Estate, protected, preserved land. Unfortunately, its preserved status has not protected it from miscanthus. With 25 species of miscanthus and roughly 100 cultivars, this plant has become a favorite in the horticultural industry. It can grow from 5 to 10 feet tall and can create dense monoclonal stands as it spreads by rhizome. This is a popular non-native grass that you see everywhere, and it escapes. It doesn't stay on your property. It can also spread by seed, as the characteristic feathery seed heads are prolific. A single individual producing up to 1,065 in its native range. But in its escaped range where it lives now, it can produce up to 40,000 or 140,000 seeds per plant. Climate change may also be playing a role in increasing the growing season for miscanthus, allowing for more seeds to set that can be dispersed far beyond the confines of a home garden. You have the opportunity to set an example of how attractive native grasses can be. There's no reason to landscape with these exotic grasses. There is nothing more beautiful than an amber field of native bluestem grasses and goldenrod. Be a model, please. I'm sure the example will be noticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
So that's everyone that's been signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? David? Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good morning. David Buda from the Springs. I haven't fully digested the tentative proposed budget, but I took a look at it thanks to the fact that you posted in advance of your work session meetings all the documents related to matters that will be discussed today. So I really haven't gotten down to the nitty-gritty, but this board, unfortunately, appears to be headed for the dubious distinction of being the first board, I think, ever to propose or to consider adopting a budget that will pierce the tax cap. That's unfortunate and frightening. Now, what anyone would see if they looks at the tentative budget is that this town and so many other municipalities is being stressed by the enormous growth in employee benefit costs, health insurance, and pension costs. Also, you have tremendous amounts of reserves that you have to carefully review and consider whether or not you can use some of your reserve funds for additional reserve funds towards reducing the amount of money that will be required to be raised by tax revenue. There is probably very few, if any, public employees that have the ability to receive as a post-employment benefit paid health insurance, either full or partial health insurance, after their retirement. This is an area that needs to be carefully scrutinized for the possibility of savings. You have to do something. Your health costs, your pension costs are out of control. Our legislators have recently adopted a plum for some of their beneficiaries, some of their employee beneficiaries, by changing and eliminating some of the reforms that were adopted into the state pension plan, giving certain tiers additional pension rights and benefits and costs. Obviously, all of this has to be paid for by the current taxpayers. So that's all I'm going to say today. It's something that we all will be looking at. I'll be listening carefully to your town administrator's presentation. We all have to look at it, but those are the things that you will have to look at. You have no control over the pension, but you certainly have the possibility of controlling your health costs. I know that you sent out for bids for a proposed change in healthcare coverage that apparently didn't eventuate. So you're probably still working on that. Your health insurance is the Cadillac of the industry. It's even too expensive for your retirees to participate in to the extent that they have to pay. But you have to do something, whether it be reducing health insurance costs or using more reserves. Those are the things that are, to me, strike out as the most likely sources of additional savings. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else here that would like to address the board? Jason, is there anyone on the line?
Yes, we have a few callers on the line. Let me go and unmute them and ready the public comment timer. And hello, caller ending 3691. You are on the air. Hello.
Hello, I'm Lena Tabori. I'm a 50-year resident of East Hampton and a member of the Energy and Sustainability Committee. I'm calling to support everything and anything that Change Hampton proposes. I find Gail, Stefan, and all the others in their group to be relentlessly generous with their time and tenacious in their commitment to a healthy, clean environment. Without them, the pollinator garden outside of Town Hall probably wouldn't have happened. And perhaps you ask, why does it matter that we expand our spaces to provide safety for insects and birds and animals of all kinds, not to mention our children and ourselves? We surely wish for clean air to breathe and clean water to drink and to swim in. A landmark study for science in 2019 found that bird populations in the United States are down by nearly 1/3 over the past 50 years. That's the equivalent of removing 3 billion birds from our skies and this is happening because they've lost their habitat to development and their food sources to the overuse of pesticides, fungicides, fertilizers, other kinds of chemicals. Grassland birds which nest on the ground in fields and meadows have been hit hardest of all. Their numbers are down 53% over the last half century. And then there's the DEC study which revealed Suffolk County uses more pesticides than any other county in New York, more than 1,700 products for a total of 6 million pounds. Another major factor in the quality of our waters is the use of fertilizers with their high nitrogen content, causing algae blooms in our local waters. Why do we want to do this? Why do we want to spray toxic chemicals on the surfaces where our children, our grandchildren, and our pets play? Why do we care so much about eating organic foods at the same time that we're willing to allow someone to spray toxic chemicals all over our yards? Grasslands provide habitat for wildlife and pollinators, aiding biodiversity, clean air, and water, and they play a critical role in storing carbon in their deep root systems, helping the global effort to slow the effects of climate change. What Change Hampton wants to do in expanding the pollinator garden to a town hall campus meadow is most importantly to provide an example of what our land should be, a place where birds can thrive, where insects can thrive, where pollinators can thrive, because it will be a place without pesticides, a place without herbicides, a place without poisons or chemicals, no spraying, no coating, no dusting. Crowded with native plants, this acreage will become what it once was, lush with creatures and growth, which will make it a place for children and grown-ups to experience as we all learn about how to care for each other and to stop poisoning each other. That's it for me.
Thank you, Lena. Jason, if you could, next caller.
All right, unmuting the next caller. Caller ending 9004. You are on the air.
Hi, good morning. This is Gloria Frazee, and I am with Rewild Long Island and also on the town's Energy and Sustainability Committee. I am so thrilled to live in East Hampton, and I'm always amazed at the beauty around us, most of it which we don't even see. I've been looking at Birdcast, which tracks migrations. Do you have any idea how many hundreds of thousands of birds crossed Suffolk County last night. Think of the number. Last night, it was 689,000 birds migrating across our skies. According to Birdcast, birds usually begin to migrate about 30 minutes after sunset, and it peaks about 2 or 3 hours later. Last night, at about 9:50, there were more than 200,000 birds in our sky. And this continues through November, and by the end of the season, nearly 35 million birds will have flown over our town. How can we help them on their journey? First off, yay, Change Hampton. It's more native grasslands, more native gardens. With Rewild, we've got a native pollinator garden at East Hampton High School, Third House, and really exciting, there's a new one about to go in at the Bridgehampton School. So the kids are learning it. We're all learning it. We got to do it. That all costs money and takes time. What is a really simple, easy, effective solution that you can do right now and save money? Lights out, baby. Lights disorient birds, indoors as well as out. You want to turn off your exterior decorative lighting, use shielded lighting so it goes down to the street where you're actually walking, as opposed to shining into your neighbors' homes. And then the same thing goes for businesses as it does for residences. It's shield that lighting, use motion detectors, use lower Kelvin so that it's more amber or red colored as opposed to blue or white. So it's a great place to live here. Let's keep our nature, our birds flying. Even if we don't see it, it's happening, and we're a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
We have no other callers on the line.
Okay. One more time in here in the main meeting room. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? All right, so we're going to go on to topics, and Jeannie Carrozza will kick us off with bids. Welcome, Jeannie.
Can we stop the screen share until Jeannie is done?
Yes, yes. Who's there?
I can stop it on my side.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Yep, morning, Jeannie.
Okay. The first bid we have is for the acceptance and delivery of 2 jet skis. This is a rebid, and the low apparent bidder is Long Island, Kawasaki, and Yamaha, $14,177.50 each, totaling $28,355. An extension of the airport advertising concession, Outfront Media, has agreed to extend their contract, and they'll also be noticing a communication building renovation, the Parsons Blacksmith Shop siding restoration, and then we're doing an RFP for airport and aviation engineering consulting services. And that's all I have on bids. And I wanted to also talk about a free paper shredding day that I wanted to include for our town residents. It would be in conjunction with also the Drug Take Back Day on October 26th. It would happen from 10 to 2, and it would be here in the parking lot, as well at Town Hall. And community members could come and bring 2 to 3 banker boxes full of just paper they have at home, old taxes, bank reconciliation, just basic paper clutter. No newspapers and magazines or anything like that. And it's just something that, in going with the green purchasing, which we have a certificate for, they had gotten in the beginning of the year, just something I wanted to add to, push for green purchasing. And one quick fact I wanted to, which falls into the next topic you have with Change Hampton, it's regenerating paper not only saves trees, but also energy. Using old paper to make new paper uses 65% less energy than making paper from trees. Every ton of recycled paper can save 17 trees, 300 gallons of oil, 3 cubic yards of landfill space, 4,000 kilowatts of energy, and 7,000 gallons of water. So by shredding your old paper, we can turn it into something positive.
Beautiful.
So,
Thanks, Jeannie. And we're going to be promoting that on social media and probably taking ads in our local newspapers to get the word out.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Change Hampton with the Town Hall Campus Meadow Update. Welcome, Gail and Stefan.
Thank you. Thank you for including us in the schedule today, because I know how busy you are. I'm Gail Pillett, and
just a second.
this is Stefan Van Dam. We're with Change Hampton, and there are others here in the room, Len Green, Biddle Duke, and Paul McIsaac, and others. Many people work during the day, so can't be here. I'm going to start, and Stefan's putting up images of the map here.
I can't see you.
Does your
I can move this.
Yeah.
Actually, when I'm going to take, let's move this a little bit. So,
So you don't want to have a visual line with the board. Okay.
Well, this way I can see.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, when we started this discussion about pollinator gardens and their significance and native plants back in 2022 with members of the board then, there was little evidence of a movement around this country. I remember I wrote an article in 2019 called Our Lawns Are Killing Us, and I remember when I was doing the research for that, it was very difficult to find articles that previous people had done. I was going way, way, way back over the years. Since then, we have a movement that has taken off like a prairie fire across the country, across particularly suburban North America. And it goes by many different names. We've talked about restorative landscaping. We've talked about nature-based solutions, or there's the Doug Tellamy effort to create homegrown national parks, trying to get everybody with a yard to reduce their lawn by half and plant native trees and shrubs and plants. There's also rewilding as a concept and prairie up. We are part of something monumental that is happening, and yet we know we have a lot of work yet to do, because this is not something that most of us have learned in school about nature, and that's why it was really important today to hear about history of place and culture and people here, but we're talking about natural history, and Len addressed it with the history of grassland. So did Lena in her call, and we're glad that they spoke up, because we're here to present the Change Hampton plan for the second and stunning state of transforming the town hall campus to ecological health. This time by creating native grassland pollinator meadows to inspire medium and large property owners to let go of their lawns with their unsustainable water use. I think we all understand that really well now. And to let go of the pesticides that are killing the birds. Lena mentioned the third of our bird population has disappeared in the last 50 years, and that's scientists largely target that to the loss of habitat and the use of pesticides. So we're talking about getting rid of the pesticides that also, by the way, infect our waterways all over here. I think we're beginning to understand more now about our groundwater, our drinking water, and the health of our bays. And there's a lot of projects going on in the town for mitigation of our local ponds and bays. So we're trying to model a healthier approach to our landscaping, planting more natives while inviting wildlife and pollinators, linking ecological health with human health. So in May of this year, we presented an early version of this proposal, and after some positive feedback from the board and consultations with the board, we chose areas that we thought together that would be most effective for, but now following up with our detailed plan in those effective locations here, and they are visible on the map. You were all given individual maps. I think we can see, we'll point out specific areas. Our landscape, and back in May when we did that presentation, we talked a lot about the historical significance and the ecological benefits of grasslands. But I think now, Len has reiterated that, and Lena, we don't want to repeat it here, but if you have questions, specific questions, we're here to address them. Our landscape architect, Abby Lawless, crafted the magnificent design for the community garden that we can see from the window here. And we, I think, all agree it's been a resounding success. From design to community input, from the confidence of our funders, as well as individual and business donors, to attracting a myriad of birds and bees and butterflies. I know you've seen them, and of course, our great excitement in the last couple of weeks is seeing monarch caterpillars on the milkweed, the only plant that they reproduce on. Added to this is the daily host of admirers coming and going from Town Hall. I know Lori Petrosky and Barbara Burnside, who are the what we call the gardening angels here, who are maintaining this garden on a weekly basis, watching and very carefully the weeds and movement of plants and things. Also, Paul Munoz's company, EcoHarmony, does some of the more detailed work and professional work. We'll get to that. But anyways, they register, the folks working in the garden, the kinds of comments and stuff that from passers through. It's also a magic venue for events. We just had one this last Saturday with lots of kids learning how to paint from nature, doing drip paintings in the garden. Some days it's hard for us to believe that we began with a 4,000 square foot turf lawn and one dying beech tree and created this. Even the beech tree has revived, I think, because it's got so much great life now around it. It doesn't mean it's not in a dying process, but it seems to have resurrected somewhat. So to do that project, as you know, we formed a public-private partnership with the town, and we have to emphasize how appreciative we've been of the Buildings and Grounds Department and their contribution to the maintenance of the garden. They have always been cooperative when we needed help with putting in the trees, which were big work projects, with mowing regularly to our specifications, et cetera, and whatever else, many things. While we have extensive volunteer assistance and a landscaping company, EcoHarmony, that does much of the detailed work, Buildings and Grounds have been helpful in a number of ways, and we look forward to more of that collaboration in the future with the new meadows. Stephen, you want to talk about the plan?
Yes, Board, good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity here. Let's look at the new plan that is up on the screen. We also have it over here. And let's look at the map. Once again, Abby Lawless has delivered a captivating design which can be read as one big meadow with pathways and access points, or a series of meadows that will feature differing ratios of grasses to pollinator-friendly perennials, with an emphasis on the eco-services to bring back birds, bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects to the Town Hall campus. The root systems of native grasses and plants help to clean and reconstitute our soils and ensure clean groundwater. We can say that this will be beautiful, and I think if you look at some of the plants that we have on the board right here in front of you, the variety of colors. So Abby reminds us that a grassland meadow is less structured than a pollinator garden, so let's think of it as a free-form painting that will rise along the highway as you enter the Town Hall campus. There'll be shorter meadows and taller meadows. They'll be visible from the highway, from the drive-in entrance, and from the dissecting lawn pathways, as well as existing paved paths. There'll be multiple sightlines and educational signage to enlighten and educate visitors. We're creating a new destination for visitors to the Town Hall campus. So let's look at the segments labeled A, B, C, and D. I have a little blow up for you here. Okay, so the We are at the lower left-hand side of the screen. The existing pollinator garden on the lower left. And so as we move over to the Justice Court, you can see the 4 beds labeled A, B, C, and D. They're approximately 2,880 square feet, and they're to be a short meadow, meaning plants reaching roughly 36 inches in height. It will feel like an extension of the current pollinator garden, but with an increased ratio of grasses, let's say 40%, to perennial pollinator plants, 60%, of Northeast and Long Island varieties of natives, and a ring of native shrubs to hide the AC unit at the end before the driveway on the right-hand side of this blow-up. You can see that maintenance access is guaranteed and utilities are respected yet covered up so visually they don't intrude on the painting that is being conceived here. Now, if we move across the drive, we get to see in green the part of the campus that we hope to accomplish in 2025. The ochre fields you see on top and on the right are 2026 into 2027 projects. So let's look at E, F, and G. These are tall meadows, a total of around 10,000 square feet, with wide lawn pathways circling the Bill King sculpture and allowing vistas to the sculpture, especially from the highway, to its flat surface. Eventually, we'll have benches to create a sense of place. The ratio of grasses to perennial flowering plants will be 70 to 30%. Let's see here. Here's another view that shows the segments further to the north. So each of these segments will provide models of different kinds of meadows in terms of the process at work. E will be planted with plugs, while G and H will use a combination of seed and plugs in F and G, I'm sorry. We're also planning a cluster of oak trees. As you may know, they're the greatest keystone species in our region, in order to educate the community that rather than cutting them down, we need to be planting them if we want to counteract the disturbing collapse of bird species who rely on their caterpillars to feed their young in spring. Amazingly, oak supports some 500 species of insects. There's a good chance we'll get donations of these oaks that would allow us to plant them this fall. Eventually, we'll plant shade gardens under the existing non-native trees, the lindens, as you can see on the right, and the growing oaks to model what can be done with native plants in shaded areas. As you'll see in the schedule, there's a 2025 plan and a 2026 plan. But let's go a little bit further here and look at the beauty that will be part of this design. So there'll be something interesting happening in the meadows. Educational signage will explain the processes and the plants and the whys. Abby's planning an elegant short grass underneath the Bill King sculpture that will not need mowing. Additional garden and meadow space. I think that is back to you, Gail.
So there's one other garden meadow that we did not discuss in terms of location, but Abby has suggested it. And it's a visual completion of our original pollinator garden out what is really out this end of that southwest behind the wrought iron railing by that driveway that comes where we planted an American holly tree 2 years ago. And the idea there would be to make it all panicum grass, solely panicum grass, which grows very large and very beautiful and would create a wonderful border, both visually and orally, against the highway, so that when you're in the garden, you sort of have this sense of a completion of a space there.
You're
And
talking
that's
right
some-
outside these doors.
Oh, it's,
Right down here.
is it
right
on this
there?
corner where the,
Like right here.
Yeah.
where the,
Okay.
So you don't look at the cars whizzing by you.
right, so it kind of buffers the highway when you're in the beautiful big pollinator garden. So schedule.
Okay, schedule. So segments A through G will be created in 2025. You can identify them, they're all the green fields. The areas beyond H, I, and J will be part of continuing work in 2026 into 2027. So we plan to start in the fall of this year, perhaps as early as next month, to plant the donated trees and shrubs. The spring of 2025, in April, we'll see the removal of turf in areas A through G. May is reserved for weeding, and which is a critical part of making this a success, is to weed early and prepare the land. June is planned for seeding and planting, and then summer, fall, and winter of 2025-26 for educational purposes and the maintenance of these pollinator grasslands. Spring, summer of 2026 will be the planting of the shade gardens under the linden trees, and continued maintenance and education. And by the summer of 2027, we expect the maturation of all meadows to be completed.
So the maintenance and management plan for this. Generally, meadows require less work, less time, less labor to maintain. And it involves a different approach to the cleanup that we do here in the spring, in that there'll be a once-a-year mowing of the meadows. That's it, in roughly late May, early June. And we really look forward to working with the Buildings and Grounds Department in doing that together and stuff. I know we actually took our rough proposal and plan to Steve O'Brien for him to kind of troubleshoot it for us in case there were any big issues in the areas we've chosen. And his concern always is that he's got seasonal workers and they don't often know the kind of philosophy that we have towards it. But we're very happy to work with whatever workers are available and talking about how we do it. We've also planned those, besides the annual mowing of the meadow itself, we're creating these wide, 8.5 at least feet wide lawn pathways through. We will encourage, like we have here, more clover in those pathways, which sequesters carbon, needs less watering. But we also mow the lawns to a higher standard than what's been in vogue for decades around. And so we have a little different philosophy about caring for the lawns. And we're always happy to share them with the staff at Buildings and Grounds. And we have to say they've been wonderful in the past. So those lawns will need periodic mowing. And
back to me, okay, we'd also like to say that the 8 feet and 8 inches is exactly the width of 2 passageways with the town mowers. So you don't need to, this is a very effective way designed for proper maintenance that the town is already doing. Let's talk about the educational components. The ecological benefits of this model of a highly endangered Long Island ecosystem will be featured on all our media and during the events that we plan to do around it. It's targeted to local landscapers, residents, businesses, and institutions. And by collaborating with the town's Buildings and Grounds Department, we hope to inspire change there as well. And like the Community Pollinator Garden Project, we hope to engage local students and community volunteers at each phase. With guidance from scientists at Cornell Extension, we'll also be measuring insect and bird populations at different stages of the process. Change Hampton has received grants from the New York Community Trust, the J.M. Kaplan Fund, to implement this project and its educational components. We've received pledges of individual donations, including work in kind from some landscapers. We'll continue to fundraise to make sure the project reaches its full potential. Our ultimate goal is to contribute to East Hampton Town becoming a model of healthy, biodiverse, resilient landscaping for other towns in Suffolk County and Long Island to emulate. Thank you.
So the next steps to move the project forward is to extend the current licensing agreement until December 31st, 2027, and amend the agreement with an added schedule describing the new work to be done on the town campus. In our presentation that we sent you in advance, we list all our consultants for this project and many of the team members of Change Hampton, some of whom are here, Paul McIsaac, Biddle Duke, Len Green, and we thank you, supervisor and board, for all you do for our community, and particularly to make it more equitable and sustainable ecologically. So thank you. If you have questions, we're here.
Yes, we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Board members have questions?
I've got just one question, and this is just, it's either going to relate to management of the space or design. So one of the challenges we have as a town with a lot of our preserve areas is litter that blows into them and getting out of there. So have we discussed with, operations as to a litter pick up program around the edge? Because as it currently works, we have crews out there on a kind of fairly regular basis. So any litter that does come onto that property is addressed accordingly. But if the expectation is that there's going to be much less management on a weekly or monthly basis, are we still going to have people picking up litter, just making sure it's not going into that area and then getting mowed? The secondary piece to that is, if you're not going to do it from a maintenance perspective, have we thought about the possibility of a design perspective where there's some kind of hedge or barrier with increased density that could, mitigate the amount of litter that blows into those areas to avoid, becoming a problem?
Yeah,
You want to do this?
It's an interesting question for sure. We haven't, of course, had that as an issue with our community pollinator garden. I'm not familiar. You're talking about people who walk by on the highway sidewalk who just throw their stuff.
Correct.
Out.
Well, I think there's a couple of ways you can deal with this. We could have an educational campaign with a sign that this is not the right thing to be doing. And we see this increasingly all over town, that garbage is strewn on both sides of the road. So perhaps that might be one way. We've had the pollinator garden serviced on a weekly basis, and we intend to extend that to the pollinator meadow. So we didn't anticipate this to be a significant issue, but we can certainly make it one and address it as needed.
Just that area that fronts the roads is my one concern. We already see some litter kind of accumulating there, but the crews do a good job in picking it up. So
Right.
if this is going to be a less managed space, which I appreciate and admire, just some way of addressing the litter that I think would be key.
Well, I think the Tall Meadow also, both fields E and F, which are fronting Pantago Road, will be, they will be a visual and a vegetative border, if you will. They'll be densely and thick. And so I don't think...
I also still see that there's a border by the sidewalk. And that it wouldn't prevent anybody whose duty it is to go around town and clean by the sidewalks. It wouldn't prevent them from doing that. Any litter that ends up in the gardens or meadows themselves, our team will take care of it as I say, it's not been an issue out here, but that could be very different when it's close.
We'll replace it what you see on this poster here in terms of the.
Right, I know.
And, certainly we are capable of putting up cheeky signs, as you know, from what we're about to put up our fall one again. We're not lazy. We just don't cut back the garden. It's a different approach in the winter.
And this could be a multilingual campaign as well, so that we're talking to the whole community.
I'd say overall, thank you guys. I think the job you've done out here with the pollinator garden, I know it makes a difference to my mood as I approach the building on a daily basis. So I appreciate the work and the support you're giving to the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have comments or questions?
I do, sure. So I appreciate you preserving the integrity of the Bill King sculpture out there, then too, and working around that Appy's design on there. I look at Carol on this, and I believe it was like the late 80s, early 90s, where there were sculptures put all around Town Hall campus, and actually, I believe over here, there was actually a grass mowed maze, actually, at one point. And what you don't see is any of that here, because I don't think that was going to last as long as this will, then too, and this will be as well received as some of those sculptures did 30, 40 years ago. Right, Carol, around that time? Yeah, and that had controversy also. I don't think this will be controversial.
We could make it, by this design, we're kind of making it a place and a destination, and we hope, as Steven said, to put in some benches at some point. So,
and it's also, we're in a different town then too. I think this is going to be much more appropriate personally. With that, I really do appreciate you reaching out to Steve O'Brien on there. There's a lot of infrastructure on the town hall campuses that at times has to be worked in.
Yeah.
So you're working around the generators, you're working around the AC units, the drainage that's out front in there right now. I want to make sure that any of the plantings have the correct planting depths. Maybe what we'll have to do is tone it out initially prior to that. Because there's wires in there that sometimes we know exactly where they're at, but sometimes we might be a couple feet off.
well, when we did the pollinator garden, we had the expert crews that come in that identify where all the lines of communication and thing, and there were several coming right through, and we actually planted trees off to the side of, out there after that.
To avoid the horizontal, there's a horizontal Verizon line going through there, and we are keenly aware of it.
There's an electrical line, we've been told, coming out of what will be the ABCD set of beds, and we've designed around that to keep that in mind.
Which is, to me, is extremely appreciated, because what happens, it means there won't be any trouble, because that's very expensive.
Yeah, no,
if it happen. Also, the root systems won't get into something, and then it also allows, if we needed to upgrade that infrastructure for whatever potential reasons down the road, it won't interfere with the beauty that this will provide. So it's just appropriate long-term planning from a landscape design to a municipal infrastructure aspect of it too. So that long-term look shows that we're all working together collaboratively. So I appreciate that. What I would, a couple things on there is, I know we have some ilex, or I believe that whatever, something's around the condenser units out there. I don't know what the evergreen aspects that you're going to be putting on to the western side of that. I wouldn't mind matching that potentially and working together on the eastern side of the entranceways over by the condenser units that are out there. They've been eaten away. We can look at that. I mean, instead of having an old and a new, it might be nice to go all new, It's as far as I think the sight lines on the entrance and the exits, now that you're planning this 8 feet off of some of the entrances, unfortunately, I think we have to do our wayfaring here at Town Hall, and we'll do that shortly. But we have a lot of people that exit the entrance all the time, or want to look to see where the Town Hall signs are. So I believe by the way that you're designing that off of the sidewalk at a prescriptive distance on there, it allows for the residents to still see the signs that we need to put on Town Hall campus as they enter here for Town Hall business. So I think that that's appropriate too. Long-term maintenance, you listen to me, and I appreciate that. It's about putting the pressure on town staff that might not have the veracity, I think that's the word you might have used, of vocation of the plantings themselves. And with what you're doing on here, it makes it's a decreased maintenance routine in the long term after we get it installed. I know you have temporary irrigation. Work with Steve as far as how to get that temporary irrigation in place there. If it's fed off the line here, in the town hall complex, or if there's something we might need to install in the future. I thank you for adjusting the plan further over. So when we look at the Peach Farm, the potential need for septic systems in there, you want to do something beautiful, but might have to be ripped up during that construction process.
If you don't get that Peach House renovated soon, we're going to start planning all over that space.
Engineers were here
This
last
could
week.
be another beautiful model of,
I would so much like to be able to use that space, but we understand.
Engineers were here last week looking at it. So by looking at all that, as far as you said, the next steps, I'm supportive of the plan that you're looking at. Many of this stuff I have in my gardens also I see around. I also, I'm supportive of extension of the license agreement on there and moving ahead. And again, just continue to work collaboratively with Buildings and Grounds as they move ahead into the different phases of the garden's lifespan. And that's all I would ask. And I thank you again. And to Tom Sediments also.
Yeah, I would just say that the existing garden is beautiful. I see your team out there working often, and I try to say thank you when I can. So, but for everybody out there, really do appreciate it. It's a lovely way to enter the building, and I'm supportive of the current plan. I think it's great. And, you know, echoing all of what Dave said, I think it's especially great that you're coordinating with town staff because, you know, it's one thing to think big and dream, but then you guys have shown the ability to make it happen. And I just want to say thank you. I'm fully supportive.
well, we thank you.
I mean, it's been an extraordinary working relationship, and I've shared this with you before, that I can't tell you the countless conversations I've had with folks going from this building, you know, talking about the plantings, people getting their phone out. Now you've labeled, they've got the names of all the plants, people taking pictures. We have brides in there getting their photos taken with their photographers. It's, like I said, it's extraordinary. And now that we're going to do these meadows, we're really proud to come to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank
We
you.
appreciate.
Yes. We're going to take the poster boards down. Would you let them set up?
Yeah, you can leave them with Joanne. And the only last closing, I just want to make sure we've shared these plans with our Natural Resources Department. I know they're on your list of consultants. I just want to double check that Kim Shaw and Mark Abramson.
We haven't yet taken our full list of plants to Kim Shaw because we hadn't, it isn't fully developed, but we can certainly take the preliminary list, which this.
These are 20. Start out.
Great. Yeah, no, we'll definitely, we would love to take those and put them in the lobby. You could just give those to Joanne.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And we'll work with our town attorney to get the license agreement extended.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the 2025 tentative budget presentation with our town administrator, Becky Hansen. That's quite the stack there, Becky.
It is quite the stack, and I'm very much looking forward to not dragging it around with me everywhere I go very soon. So, good afternoon, Supervisor and Town Board. And I just want to mention that I don't, in just to sort of on the coattails of Change Hampton, I think it would be really interesting that if the public sees that actually the cover of our budget this year is the pollinator garden outside, courtesy of Change Hampton. So I just thought we would mention that. Okay, again, good afternoon, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. I'm here to present the 2025 tentative budget. We began budget preparations back in June, as we do in every year, during the months of July and August. We do internal work, updating our software, updating our reports to get started for when we start inputting for the 2025 budget. The supervisor, town board liaisons, and department heads met with finance staff starting at the end of July until mid-August, and during that time, we conducted 28 meetings. From then until mid-September, additional meetings were held to refine and finalize the document that's before you today. The 2025 tentative budget totals $103,722,303. In dollars, this is just over an $8.2 million spending increase from 2024, and this equates to an 8.65% spending increase. The 2025 tentative budget proposes to pierce the tax cap by levying a total amount of $65,882,620 for the 4 townwide funds. As you have probably known, for the public's benefit, the Comptroller's Office had announced back in September that the tax cap levy would be capped at 2%. For the town of East Hampton, that allowable cap amount was just over only $2.1 million from the current fiscal year. The town has worked hard to minimize the tax implications to property owners. For a home with an assessed value of $4,000, that market value today would just be over $1.14 million. And if you're living outside one of the villages, the tax impact for 2025 will just be over $104. The tax rate increase remains within single digits at just over 7.7%. A lot of people are going to ask, what has contributed to this increase in the spending plan from 2024 to 25? And there are many factors that the town of East Hampton continues to deal with, including every municipality and school district that we've seen on Long Island and across New York State. 62% of the budgeted expenditures are related to salaries and benefits. The town still encounters difficulties as we try to recruit and retain qualified employees, and most of the town employees within the 2025 fiscal year are due to receive a 4% contractual increase. In addition to contractual salary increases, there are many personnel changes within the budget. That includes a number of new full-time positions, a number of promotions, merit pay for members of the CSCA, and in addition, regrading for CSCA employees, which the titles that were regraded within the budget, those will affect over 100 CSCA employees. Health insurance premiums have been budgeted with a 10% increase, and that's always a very difficult item to budget because the town, we don't receive our actual NISHIP rate increases until December, way after the budget is adopted. So we use our best estimate based on current year projections and the number of employees that we have, and then also anticipated retirements. However, retirement contributions are responsible for one of the largest increases in fiscal year 2025. This is for many reasons. The state has increased payroll contributions for the employee retirement system, which is for a bulk of our employees, from 15.2% to 16.5% of the total payroll. And for our police department employees, the pension contribution will rise from 31.2% to 33.7%, which when you really think about it, more than 1/3 of your entire police payroll is going to be your pension contribution. We are also unfortunately starting to see results of recent legislative changes to more specifically Tier 6 employees who are members of the retirement system. This includes changing the 5-year average salary, which was done a number of years ago by the state to hopefully lower the long-term pension liability. The legislature reduced that down to only a 3-year final average salary. In addition, Tier 6 members can now vest after only 5 years instead of previously 10 years. And in addition, they did eliminate the cap on overtime earnings for some of these higher tiers, which all of those are going to trickle down and affect any municipality that has contributing members to the retirement system. So the budget also does increase expenditures for beach personnel. Last year and this summer, the town undertook a major effort to recruit the most qualified staff that we could by offering competitive salary rates. This year, we were able to hire and maintain a full staff pretty much throughout the season. Debt service payments have increased by just under $1 million, and that is a contributing factor for obviously the increased costs for the number of projects that the town is undertaking during its capital plan. When we do talk about revenues, the town continues to take a conservative and realistic approach. Within the last 3 years, the town has examined fee schedules and been proactive in updating where appropriate. In addition, the same is true anytime we've had to negotiate a new or renew a new lease agreement, whether it's at the airport or any of our other townwide properties. So we've also extensively examined the use of reserve and fund balances for each of the major funds as a revenue source for the fiscal year 2025.
Throughout the entire fiscal year, we closely monitor expenses and revenues and work with the departments to address their needs. We always have to remain mindful that the budget, and people hear me say this all the time, is a fluid document and subject to change at any time and without any notice. Last week, however, New York State released its annual fiscal stress designations for municipalities. These are based on fiscal year 2023, and the town has again received a no designation score for both its fiscal and environmental stress. Scoring is based on various indicators for categories such as use of your fund balance, your cash flow ratios, debt service costs divided by revenues, and many other factors. The town had a total score of 0, which, again, not always having a score of 0 is a good thing, but in this case, it really is. The threshold to receive up the next level from a no designation is just over 44 points or 44%. And again, the town has remained at 0 for both of the environmental and the fiscal stress indicators. So the schedule to move forward here. So if the town is to pierce the tax cap, the suggestion would be to notice, because to pierce the tax cap is subject to an adoption of a local law by the town board. The town board could notice for a public hearing at this Thursday's meeting for the hearing to take place on October 17th. Once the hearing is closed, the board can adopt it at the November 7th meeting. The only requirement on the law in relation to adopting the tax cap local law and adopting the budget is that the tax cap pierce override legislation must be adopted prior to the budget. In theory, these can even happen at the same meeting, but if the town wants to adopt it prior and then have the hearing on the budget conducted at the later meeting. So for the actual budget, for the actual budget, we will continue to have work session reviews until the board agrees on a final document, which will turn into your preliminary budget. A notice for a public hearing will have to be approved at the October 17th meeting for the hearing to take place on the preliminary budget to take place on November 7th. The board will have to adopt the budget at the Tuesday, November 19th work session, because at the November 21st meeting will be too late by law to adopt the budget under state law. Just as a reminder, the board must adopt the budget by November 20th. So finally, I would just like to thank the supervisor, the town board, the department heads for their cooperation throughout the year and throughout this entire process, and specifically my staff in the finance department, Neji Valera and Alex Papajohn, who without them, it would not be possible to actually put this document together. So now, here's the opportunity for the board to review, discuss, and certainly if you have any questions or comments between now and next Tuesday, I can come back before the board and we can talk about any of those changes or additions that we need to be addressed.
Folks have questions, comments?
Firstly, again, I've emailed you, but thank you guys. Doing budgets is a brutal and very tedious but critically important exercise, and I know it takes a lot of effort to do it. One kind of question I have, and it's somewhat department specific, and we've started an email on this beforehand, and we can finish up elsewhere. But understanding how one uses capital funds versus operating funds for different aspects of the town. So, I want to take IT as an example here. So our IT infrastructure, by kind of professional standards, will be considered a capital asset as a whole. So, in specific examples, where is the delineation where we are going to be using capital funds to help maintain that asset versus operating funds to maintain that asset? Just to have some understanding of that, because when I look specifically at that budget, that is the key line item. It's those costs that are driving that budget increase. So, helping to understand where we can use capital versus operating would be very helpful for me in that realm.
Well, in the particular case that you're talking about, which was the cybersecurity software that the town budgeted for and did, really stepped up its effort in light of the county's cyber attack in early 2023. The town contracted with the company off a state contract. We checked with bond counsel at the time, and since this was an initial startup of a new program of that nature, the town issued debt to cover the initial, because we really needed to upgrade and get that system implemented right away. Once that 3 years is up, since it will be a continual maintenance operating type agreement like all the others that IT currently has. We will no longer issue debt for it. I mean, it will become part of the operating budget like the rest of IT's maintenance contracts.
Just reading through town law and comptroller kind of aspects on that, though it does seem that there's some scope to potentially use capital assets to continue with that maintenance and protection, or is that not the case in your mind?
Not at this point would I continue past the 3 years of the contract with that. Again, we checked with bond counsel before we issue anything of that nature.
Okay, I'd just like to follow up with that with bond counsel, because I'm just going by the capital projects fund from the comptroller, and it's just, it's where,
Well, I'm sorry, do you mean a generic capital reserve fund?
Capital projects fund.
Okay, that's not the same as the capital plan and the debt that we issue. So the generic capital reserve fund, which is not where that IT funding came from.
Okay, so just with regards to the creation of a capital project fund for IT, though,
each major fund has its own generic capital reserve fund.
Okay.
The A fund, the B fund, highway, and sanitation each has one.
And that's funded from?
At the end of the year, when you guys actually recently just appropriated out of your fund balances, we divert funding into those reserve funds.
So it comes from fund balance as opposed to capital. Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my major question.
Okay.
David?
Thank you for your first budget. This is very challenging. This might be the first year, as we actually had mentioned, in dubious, if we want to stay in dubious, but the needed aspect of actually potentially looking at piercing the tax cap, which is what we're seeing in probably in other municipalities on Long Island, probably many of them upcoming, I would anticipate, and then also some of our school districts. Myself, and I don't believe any of the board members, as we have had 2 past school board members here that done multiple budgets, take that lightly any which way. We're all taxpayers here also. The majority of everyone in this room is a taxpayer here in the town of East Hampton or another jurisdiction, and we always have to look at the bottom line, particularly when some of us have 4 kids, first year in college. How are we going to do this? But one of the things that we have to do as far as a town board is making sure that we can run functional government in the way that we believe that the town of East Hampton's residents need. We are 2 things. We are not just a resort community. I don't like looking at it this way. This is our hometown. What do we need to be able to live out here in our hometown and enjoy it then too? Many which ways we want to actually enjoy our parks. We want to enjoy our beaches safely then too. We want to walk up and down Main Street and have either litter removed or have things look nice or have new services provided for us. But we are different here than any other town on Long Island right now, as we're on a prominence on the East End. Many individuals I can see in this room commute here for over an hour away. They go through multiple other townships to get here, multiple other options for potential places to work and live, but they still want to work in East Hampton. What we have to do is we have to adjust our salaries appropriately, our compensation packages appropriately, but within the confines of a budget that we have to attract and mostly maintain our staff. This is my seventh one I've been here right now. This is the one that's probably one of the most challenging, but it's also one in which I think that the supervisor, yourself, and others, we've looked at it in which way, how do we try to make sure that we can maybe look at other revenue streams, non-tax revenue on there? How do we appropriately maintain our AAA ratings by making sure that we actually have our fund balance projections that are needed just in case something happens, but at the same time use it appropriately in trying to make sure that we don't have to unnecessarily increase our taxes as much this calendar year. It's challenging to do so. A couple of things I've seen this year that we've been able to do, as you just mentioned right now, is look at non-tax revenue. Very, very simple. Some of the fee structures we've increased through most of our departments here, either last year under with Peter or Kathy and I were on the board then too. This year we're looking at that from off-street parking in Montauk to a success that we've had there this year then too, to raising permit fees in our building departments on there then too, or very simple from our rental registries. These all were looking at long-term in the last couple of years, noting that we were going to hit this mark in which there's certain things that the town is committed to having to pay, and we didn't want to actually go have the pierce the cap as much as we could have had to do. So it's very challenging in there. But one of the things we're also seeing here is that there were certain positions that were never really filled. And we removed some of those, but at the same time, we're actually looking to fill other or craft other new positions that produce redundancy in some of the departments on there. We see that in buildings and grounds and some of the other ones then too. I think what I want to try to say to the residents and the taxpayers here, you have some very good staff employees working at the town of East Hampton right now that are, look at the multitude of facets as far as working for salaries, with the civil service competency, getting paid to what their competency is, but also to understand that a lot of us actually make sure that we want to protect our families by making sure, yes, we do have the Cadillac of health plans. These are things that make the job of working in the town attractive compared to going out into the private sector on there. I'm committed to making sure that we don't do anything unnecessarily to raise the town's taxes. Our hands were a little bit forced this year in the doing so. I don't think we're going to be the only ones doing that. But what I want to make sure is that we can provide the services that back that up. Okay? We want to make sure things happen and that our town looks as great and it functions as well as we can by having the intellect behind our town staff and making sure that we invest in town staff in the appropriate ways. And I want to continue on to get better. I can go line by line on this. We could talk more on that. We're seeing it. You mentioned it. Some of the things we had to do with our beaches, our lifeguards this year, anything from sanitation, highway, IT, attorneys, all the way through. These are ways that I think we're investing in a way to make East Hampton stronger for the future, but it comes at a cost. And that's where we're at right now. So I'm sorry for going off on a little tangent there, but that's just how I feel.
I failed to mention when I was doing my introduction. So just running through some of those numbers, like I had said, our allowable levy cap was just over $2.1 million. We are anticipating in both the ERS and the PFRS, and those are our two retirement systems, an increase of over $2.5 million. Budgeted salaries from the 2024 adopted budget to the 2025 tentative is a cost of over $1.9 million. It's not reality to think that, again, taking a very careful look at, the supervisor through the use of the reserves and the fund balances, that is within reason, without, crossing that line of into operating. But again, being mindful to the taxpayer, it's at that point. And until the state makes some changes to the tax cap, which they really need to do, the town of Riverhead announced last week that they were piercing their tax cap, which they have done. I think this is their third or fourth year at this point. It's not reality unless the legislature starts making some changes. And again, if the town was only allowed to increase taxes by 2.1%, when that alone is just salary increases, I mean, and again, how much more can we, increase the rental registry permits? By doubling that fee, we did double the amount of revenue that comes in, but that was an additional $100,000. So, with having very limited areas that are non-tax revenues, makes it difficult for any municipality to come up with anything other than a tax levy.
Did you have any comments?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you to Becky and your team. I know that you've worked very, very hard on this, and Supervisor Burt Gonzalez. It's my first budget that I'm participating in. And as David has said, nobody takes it lightly to pierce the tax cap. I think David, highlighted all the services we offer. I think we live in a very, very beautiful place. That said, I feel very strongly that we have to be a place where people of ordinary income, ordinary wealth can also thrive. And so any increase in taxes, while it might not have a huge impact on some classes, we all recognize, the importance of that, and that, a few $100s or $100 in this case is still a big deal. So it's not taken lightly. I think, Becky, those last numbers you gave about the increases, that the automatic increases of what we have to spend are more than we're allowed to increase the tax cap. So it's not wild spending here. That said, I think we'll all continue to work on ways to provide services as professionally as possible, keep our town looking beautiful, and also be as frugal as we can with spending. So So thank you all. And as with all, of our work here, I really look forward to hearing what the public has to say. This was just released. I know that the supervisor went out of her way to release it, make it as available as possible, as early as possible, and look forward to hearing any sort of opinions from whoever views it about what they think we could do differently. So this is the first release, and again, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Ian. And just a couple of things I wanted to point out, and I appreciate all the comments by my colleagues and by Becky, our town administrator, is that we're also, we look at this as a transitional budget, because this is the first budget that we've done since we renegotiated contracts with our three unions, CSCA, PBA, and SOA. So that's reflected in here, and those were 4% contractual increases. We've talked about the increases to retirement, to health insurance. We also need to talk about the fact that if you look at the 2020 census, our community, our year-round community has increased 32% in 10 years. And, we believe that's an understatement. The census was conducted in April of 2020 when we all went down. We had just gone down into shutdown. So, and we know from our roads and just moving around town, how many year-round people are here. And we need to provide services. I mean, the town owns 120 properties. We have 34 cemeteries. We have 21 comfort stations. So all of those, need to be provided for. We have hundreds of miles of roads. We've got sanitation, the numbers of the pounds of garbage and cardboard and recycling that's been coming into sanitation has been off the charts since COVID and since the pandemic. So we need to address all that. We also need to, support our staff and make sure that they're making a living wage. And that is all, built into this budget. We also have the not-for-profit organizations that support our kids, our seniors, and our hardworking families that we continue to give grant monies to. That's like the Springs and Montauk Food Pantries, Eleanor Whitmore, and Project Most, that provide quality childcare for our kids. So those kinds of programs are in the budget. We've also got a couple of new programs in there. We're working with East End Hospice. We're working with Fighting Chance for those in our community that are struggling with cancer. So, this budget is trying to lift up our community. It's a reflection of our values and our priorities. And as Ian and my colleagues have said, I look forward, and we look forward to hearing back from the community. We'll be discussing this at the next two work sessions. And then as Becky noted, we have a public hearing coming up on November 7th. So I think with that, unless anyone else has comments to make, we can wrap up this discussion, and Becky will be back with us in Montauk to talk about the budget next week. Thank you, Becky. And thank you to Alex and Niji. This is a 322-page document, and it's very robust, and we appreciate everyone's efforts. Okay, next up, we've got Ian and Samantha Klein are here joining us to talk about a New York Forward grant opportunity for the Springs Business District. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you. So I'm here today to share some information about the New York Forward program. It's a grant opportunity through the Department of State, and I want to talk about some projects that could be eligible. Previous planning efforts like the Hamlet studies and ongoing community engagement through citizens advisory committees have called out some challenges and started a conversation around opportunities or solutions to those challenges. Specifically in the focus area of Springs is what we're looking for this project. Okay, great. So I think we're good for the next slide. Thanks, Patrick. So New York Forward is aimed towards smaller towns and hamlets. It's a partner to the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. It's for smaller hamlets that have a unique character, mom and pop shops, a certain small town charm and heritage, lower density buildings, buildings with low stories. So we thought that we felt New York Forward was the better fit for this specific project. So New York Forward is planning to give awards of $4.5 million to applications that include a variety of projects that all contribute to revitalizing or reinvigorating an area. These can include public improvement projects like walkability, green infrastructure, streetscaping, direct assistance to local businesses for things like renovations, elevating historical or cultural aspects of the area, among other related projects. Two of these awards are anticipated to be given out on Long Island and to communities that meet an eligibility criteria of being pro-housing certified. So the town just recently received that just this past August. So we just met this eligibility for the application window. So the Hamlet studies and spring CAC meetings, they kind of pointed us in a direction of general public feelings and some challenges and opportunities in the area. An action item for anyone interested in the public is going to be a public survey that's currently out to help gather general input and feedback on the application's direction. If the town's application to New York Forward is awarded, there's going to be a fresh planning process specific to the scope of this project to raise or revisit ideas and make sure anything implemented is supported by the community. The state would provide us with a technical assistance consultant and project manager to facilitate stakeholder engagement. Next slide. So any potential projects funded under this program would need to be in the designated focus area or very nearby and adjacent to it. And putting together the boundaries of this New York Forward area, we tried to really call out the heart of Springs. So it includes some of the historic district of Ashua Hall, Springs Library, Springs Presbyterian Church, among other buildings, as well as Springs School, and then the small businesses around Fort Pond Boulevard. It's adjacent to local waterways and scenic areas of Accabonac Harbor and Pussy's Pond, and it's also surrounded by a medium-density residential district. So we think these different attributes of the area really contribute to the sense of place in Springs and the functions or key assets of the community. Some of the potential challenges previously identified are around traffic and parking. Some wider town issues are housing and focuses on the local economy and cost of living. So for this project, we really hope to promote safety on roadways, preserve historical and cultural buildings in the hamlet for that sense of place, and support local businesses. The cost of living is high, and so is rent and the cost of doing business. So hopefully providing some support would have this trickling down effect to members and visitors of the community and consumers in the area. More specific ways to address those goals may include some projects. So we're not limited to this list. It would actually be great if this was a much longer list, so we're very open to more ideas. It's a big funding source, so we'd rather cast a wide net and oversubmit the amount available to us. The state ultimately will work with us on making decisions of which projects that we submit to actually end up funding. So some projects listed here, Ashua Hall and Springs Library, are historic buildings that are in need of some building upgrades. Preserving the integrity of those buildings help to offer community programming, a space for events. Regularly held farmers markets are located in this area, and they have a visual character. Safety and walkability improvements related to pedestrians, cyclists, or parking, looking at ease of navigation and safe connectivity from Fort Pond Boulevard to the historic district and possibly the school. and a small project fund to support local businesses. So businesses would be able to submit information on doing equipment purchases like an HVAC upgrade, or doing exterior improvements, facade enhancements, or interior enhancements as well. Just trying to make this area a place that people want to visit and spend time here. Next slide. So really we want the call of action for this presentation for someone that's interested to fill out a public survey that we have, especially if you live or work in the area or close to it. We definitely want your opinion. It's only 9 questions. 3 of those are your contact information. So we tried to keep it short enough that you know, we want to get some good feedback, but don't want to take up anyone's time too much. We just want to help inform this application in the direction that we're going in. When we're talking about the assets of a community, the most important asset is the people in it. So we want to make sure that whatever we're proposing has the community support. Springs is a very special place to people, and we want to receive direction and input from this very early on stage. In Springs and other hamlets of the community, members of the community really feel like a part of their identity is attributed to where they are. And in some cases, it goes back family generations. So we want to be sensitive to that, of keeping the community's character, but also noticing some of the challenges that even prior to me starting this presentation were being discussed. And if there's a grant opportunity here that we can come in and help remediate some of these issues, we want to jump on doing that. Okay. And so although we want to start some of the engagement now, also a local planning committee was recently formed to help discuss and think through this application. But if East Hampton Town was awarded, what would happen is a kickoff of an approximately 9-month-long planning process of coming in and redefining the vision, the goals, and the strategies and projects that are compatible with the community vision. So that would be working with the state to do a strategic investment plan, would be the deliverable of that stakeholder engagement. So we would probably start with a visioning process of where we are now, where we want to be, and collect a shared direction and framework to move in, and doing a community needs assessment. Okay, yeah, I think those are my main notes. I guess some key takeaways is that now is not the only time for engagement, but we did want to begin it now. We think this is an important opportunity, and we have some good ideas that were raised in previous CSE meetings, planning studies, and by other organizations, and that we hope the focus of this is improving safety in the area, helping small businesses, and assisting nonprofits and community buildings.
Well, if you don't mind, Kathy, I want to say thank you, Sam. You know, this came about fairly quickly in a liaison report I was giving a few weeks ago about the Spring CAC and road safety concerns. Sam, who helps us with grants, found this source of funding that we might be eligible for, thanks to our participation as a pro-housing community, and that was really appealing to me. I think it's appropriate that we're talking about potentially looking at $4.5 million of non-local tax funding for projects that are very important to the town. I'm not somebody who thinks just spending money on anything just to spend it's a good idea, but I think anybody looking, you know, who lives in Springs like I do, or visits Springs, will appreciate what a lovely place it is. And I think even though we may encounter different opinions about what could be done there, whether it's, you know, business, road safety, environmental, I think almost anybody can think of something that a good use that money could be put towards. And that's where we are right now. This is supposed to be a collaborative effort. I want to hear from everybody, people who have their own ideas, think our ideas are imperfect. But right now what we're trying to do is secure the funding. So as Sam said, we want to cast a wide net with a lot of different ideas. I've reached out to the fire department, who has some needs there. Ashwag Hall, a community center, has some needs. We have our own historic structures. road safety, parking safety. There's a lot of different things out there that I think this money could be used for. And Sam has been really, really helpful to sort of steer our needs that I'm sort of describing and liaison as a liaison to Springs with to match it up to fit the grant that the state is trying to, that the state is offering. I think the fact that the town has done Hamlet studies, that we've invested in infrastructure like the Old Stone highway culvert that's happening, the Pussy's Pond revitalization, septic improvements, historic structures. We're already investing in these things, and the fact that there might be a source of funding outside of local taxes, I think is super appealing. So right now, we have October 18th as the deadline. We want to get as much information as quickly as possible from as many people as possible to try to put together a winning application. And from that point, there will be very, very extensive planning. As Sam said, we've already formed a committee. I've talked publicly about this in this forum to Spring CAC. We want it to be very inclusive, and that will only continue and grow. So please reach out to me, to Sam, fill out the survey. And it's a very exciting opportunity. And again, I thank Sam for all of her work.
Appreciate it.
Sure. I think it's a great opportunity. We obviously look through this at different lenses that we all kind of communicate to. So for me, I kind of see like the possibility of lifeline facilities in there. I'm like, you know what, that maybe that's not a terrible idea for Springs to have some kind of hub that has a generator that people can go to for power or something in a storm in that realm. But overall, I really like what you're doing here. The other one that kind of stood out to me personally was kind of the business piece. And I think, one has to be careful slightly in that realm of just promoting one business. So like maybe it's kind of celebrating a wider group of businesses in this district. I know that helps as a businessman, but ways to kind of draw that I think would be great. The other thing I think that's great that you're doing with this that I think is very helpful is the public survey piece. I think that we hear from certain people in the community, and actually widening our scope and kind of who we listen to can be very, very helpful to get some scope of what the needs out there might truly be. So great job, and I look forward to seeing this moving forward.
David?
Sure. So I think one of the keystones here is that we're appropriately placed or higher in priority right now because of what the supervisor was able to accomplish most recently, being pro-housing on there. Moving that ahead then too. So I think it would be almost foolish if we didn't try to go find funding for things that we think is all potentially needed. Assistance with our businesses, assistances with public safety, road connectivity, public safety being for children. A lot of children walk this way to go to school on there. If we can blend that balance of design with our historical districts, areas of our right-of-ways on there, working with the business district, getting kids to school safely, and then to potentially add to some of the needs for the businesses to not expand, but to gentrify. Is that the right word? No? Update? No. Strengthen. I appreciate it. Strike that. I think that's something that's great. Now, nothing here is guaranteed. But again, without taking, the worst action is no action. This gives us an action to go find if we can get this and move it ahead, and then we'll have much more talk. And I agree with what Tom said. The survey out there to get more voices in there in this area then too. Yeah, please go for it. So I'm full support of seeing what we can do. Congratulations, Ian, for getting this moved forward with Sam.
Well, we haven't done anything yet. We're trying.
So, yeah.
I do want to say, one thing in response to, Tom is entirely right that we don't want to, and I'm very sensitive about this as a person in the town council. You don't want to pick winners. You don't want to say, okay, this business gets all of this money. The idea is to, and this was highlighted in the Hamlet study, that there's a couple of neighborhood business areas that could just use some improvements, whether it's safety or lighting or whatever it is. And that's why we're trying to be so public about this, is because however that is allocated. Now, a lot of this money is going to be for the town itself or nonprofits, fire department, things like that. To the extent that we do, make funds accessible to businesses where there would be some sort of a match, we want to cast a wide net and make sure that those improvements not only are benefiting the business itself, but also the community as a whole. I see a synergy here, but I think that's a very important thing to bring up. And I just want to, say that we are contemplating that throughout our process. And I think we'll have to make sure we keep a focus on that.
So what I wanted to mention is two things. One is, how do we get the word out for folks to take the survey? And then if we could just talk a little bit about some projects to consider. So first, getting the word out. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe we could approach the school, if you haven't already done so, Ian, to see they've probably got a Google group that they send out to their parents all the time. If we could get the survey pushed out that way. We've got the Academic Protection Committee, the Springs Improvement Society, Springs Library. They all have lists. Springs Presbyterian Church, may have a list, and I'm going to make a personal appeal to Mr. Buddha, who's here in our audience, who we know has a mailing list. David, if you would put out to your folks, that would be awesome. So that's the first thing, right? Because we want to get as many people, because I'm sure in the application, if you come back and said, 15 people took the survey versus 1,500 people took the survey, it carries a lot of weight. So that's the first thing. Second thing with projects to consider, I know Jeannie had mentioned with the blacksmith shop that we're going out for RFP on that for the exterior. I don't know if there's other projects at the blacksmith shop, if that's going to make the list. I live in this district. I live off of Fort Palm Boulevard. I also served on the Springs School Board for 9 years. The last 2 is the board president, and I was actually on the board president when we made the Safe Routes to School application. It only took 8 years to get the sidewalks in. But I will say part of that, when we used to talk about it, is that the school only buses 1 mile out from, the walking to school. So kids that live on Fort Palm Boulevard and live north of the school on Springs Fireplace Road have to walk, bike, or their parents drive them to school. And I know parents are anxious to have their kids walk or ride their bike down Fort Palm Boulevard and down Springs Fireplace Road. If you live south and west of, by School Street and Gardner's Avenue, Springs Fireplace Road has sidewalks on both sides of the street. Gardner's Avenue has a sidewalk. Fort Palm Boulevard doesn't have a sidewalk, and folks are walking it all the time, whether it's for exercise, whether it's to get to the school, whether in the old days it was to get to the bus. Now we have, the transit where they come to your house. But, we need to make our roads in Springs, and I know this is where this came from the Springs CAC, which we've heard for years, our roads safer for pedestrians and cyclists. So, and I know you've got that on here, Sam. So it's just critical to drive that point home. The other thing is, on the west end of Fort Palm Boulevard, there's a restaurant, a tavern, and a coffee shop that, is very popular. And the parking there can be a bit of a nightmare. People parking on both sides of the street, tires on the asphalt. And so anything we can do to provide safety up there, if that could be looked at in this plan. And then we also Ian mentioned parking in the historic district. When there's a farmer's market in town, particularly on a holiday weekend, and there's also a Quicksilver sale at the Springs Presbyterian Church, I take my heart in my hands when I drive through there and I'm texting the chief saying, this is, can be very dangerous. People walking, cars on both sides of the street. We worry about emergency vehicles being able to get down the street when there's a lot of activity in the historic district at Ashwell Hall and the church and the library and the blacksmith shop. So I know when we were looking at the library a couple of years ago, working with Drew Bennett, we were looking at there were ways to create additional parking. I mean, this would be the perfect project to do that under. So I think, hopefully you're going to have a list a mile long of potential projects to bolster our case to the state to grant us funding to make these improvements. So, and I know you're working on a tight timetable. I appreciate the folks that have signed up and committed to work on this committee. And, I'm sure it'll be a very robust and thorough grant application. And thank you in advance for that, Sam and Ian.
If I could just very, very quickly, Nancy Carney, the superintendent of Springs, was actually at the last spring CAC meeting giving a presentation. I'll talk about my liaison report a little bit, and that's when I was also talking about this. So we are in communication, and all those other groups that you mentioned, even Mr. Buddha, I guess a group in himself, are aware of this. So we have made the appeal, and I appreciate anybody else who has other, ideas of who can get the word out. And specific projects, we are talking with an engineer who helped us with the blacksmith shop, the current project. For future projects, we were already talking about things that needed to be done there. And the idea that there now might be funding for that makes those projects much, much easier. The Springs Library windows, Ashwag Hall has some very specific projects. So all great ideas. We're also talking with representatives from the church. We'll continue to sort of, put our feelers out, our tentacles out as far as we can. But just wanted to say that we are pursuing all of those things.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Sam.
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay. So now we have a couple of urban renewal map modifications that we've got our Assistant Town Attorney Charlie Collins here to take us through. I think one in particular is on for public hearing on Thursday night. So we wanted to make sure that it was discussed here at a work session before we hear it.
Go down. Show this page.
Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Just trying to pull the map up for you so you can get a look at what's the proposed change is. Okay, yeah, so here we go. So this is an application to amend urban renewal map MN6 for urban renewal parcel 28C in Montauk, 14 Fremont Road. Basically, this property, if you look at the map where that red line is, there's a black dot on number 28C. That black dot is where the driveway is supposed to be per the old filed map urban renewal plan. And the driveway was supposed to go out to Flanders Road to the north. This property was developed as far back as 1988. The driveway actually went where the red line is down to Fremont Road. And it's just been that way since then. And they made an application to amend the map to reflect the actual conditions that are present at the property. And it's been this way for 35 years. And the engineer also doesn't feel like it would really make much of a difference considering it's been there for so long and works properly.
Okay, and we did post on the website the planning department's memo.
With aerials showing the location of the driveway in 1988 and in 2003 and 2023. And they had to get an easement, but their easement is there's an easement over the property. So there's no question of it not having access to a public road. So it should operate as it's been operating.
Got it. Okay.
So Charlie, so you're saying that they have an access easement over the property?
Yeah, where that red line, where the red line is over the property of another lot, but they have an easement to use as for access to get to Fremont Road.
All right, and we have the planning board has no objections to the relocation of the access from the southeast to the southwest and allowing the existing access to Fremont Road to continue, and the planning department agrees.
Yeah, and the engineer as well.
And the engineer, okay. So, and this is, like I said, I believe is on for public hearing on Thursday evening. So there was one other modification, right?
Yes, there's one more. This one's on for public hearing in November. I gave you a little more time this time. This one is at 3 Hedges Avenue. So it's this map. So on this property, this lot fronts on Middle Highway. It's in the map of Montauk Manor, number 265, section 3. It's the urban renewal. Urban renewal EH-7 parcel 65. So this one, part of the map requirements for this old file map is to put a scenic easement on, or 25-foot scenic easement abutting Middle Highway for all the lots that abut on Middle Highway, the front Middle Highway. For some reason, when this property was originally getting developed in the late 80s, an easement was apparently, just based on my research, I found that there's letters saying that an easement was received by the building department, but was never formally recorded. And it's never been recorded. There's no record of it at the county of ever getting recorded. So what happened was the property was developed, and there's some improvements that now, if you were to put that 25-foot easement on the lot, that wouldn't work. So basically, it was, I don't really know how that happened. It was such a long time ago, but right now, the idea is to, instead of requiring the 25-foot scenic easement, to require 11-foot scenic easement, which would allow for there to still be some scenic easement along Middle Highway and allow the existing conditions that have been approved and CO'd multiple times by the town to remain without having to make any alterations. There was a review by the engineer. This is not like a super sensitive in terms of the scenic easement wouldn't really be protecting any like major natural resources. It's more just like a buffer between the properties and the road.
Okay. And this one, it said the planning department has no objections to the modification, and the planning board agreed with the planning department and provided comments acknowledging the assessment made by Mark Abramson of the Natural Resources Department that it would be more feasible to reduce the easement. So that's what the recommendation of town staff is. But as Charlie said, we have this on for a public hearing in November, so we'll get to the public.
I think this specific one has much more challenges than the other one.
Yeah.
But I look forward, I'll reserve my comments for later and look forward to seeing the public hearing, what the public has to say.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
That's it.
All right, great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Charlie. Okay, we've got Becky Hansen back to talk about a draft employee flex time policy. Welcome back, Becky.
Hi, just enough time to scarf down a granola bar. The town board, I've circulated and it's been posted on the town website. The town has for some time talked about adopting or implementing a formal flex time policy. Other municipalities post-COVID obviously have instituted this in some form or another, and especially with the town and the increased ridership with the South Fork Commuter Connection and the Hampton Hopper, we do have a number of employees who are having to modify their schedule to meet the demands of the train schedule. So in wanting to be able to offer probably a more equitable opportunity for really any employee where it's appropriate based on the work that they're doing and the department that they're working for, to offer a flex policy for any employee, and it would be any employee other than department heads. So this would propose to apply to CSEA employees and other employees that we have that are not members of any bargaining union. They're appointed employees. So I think the objective, as outlined in the policy, it is good to start as an explanation. Whereas the town is given consideration to the creation of a flex policy for certain employees who, due to the nature of their job, may be able to work alternative schedules without detriment to town operations. Certain town employees must be present in town facilities during business hours in order to be available to assist the public and/or meet other operational needs. A flex time policy can ensure sufficient staff are at the work location to assist the public while also offering some staff flexibility in their scheduled arrival and departure times. So what the policy outlines is it would create what is called an arrival and a departure band of time for an employee, where they could arrive to work within a 2-hour time frame starting at 6:30 a.m. so that they must arrive anytime between 6:30 or 8:30 a.m. and departing no earlier than 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So again, the employee would have to actually apply to their department head, and the department head would have to evaluate whether that particular employee, what their duties are, the duty of their department, if it's feasible for that employee to be able to adopt a flex time policy or flex time schedule. Now, this would not include any time an employee has to make a temporary adjustment to their schedule, whether for a personal or a medical reason. Those can be, addressed on a case-by-case basis. But this is really more of a more permanent type change in their schedule, as long as it permits, or if there's no, change in function of the department or the function of the need of the particular employee. There is again, the employee would have to formally apply to their department head. The department head would have to review. And if a department head does not feel that it's particularly going to work for that employee, an employee can appeal to the town board, to make a different determination if they wish, other than what their department has recommended. This has been vetted with the CSCA. We also ran it by the Department Heads Association that we have to make sure that, both of those entities were on board, since, on the department head side of it, they're going to have to be working with their employees who are looking to take advantage of it. And of course, obviously the CSCA, because they would be the largest number of employees within their population or their membership that this could possibly apply to. And again, there are unfortunately, a number of positions that this just is not going to be feasible for. So, we are all mindful of that going into this process. So this is for the town's digestion, review, consideration, and whether or not you wish to move forward with it.
Yeah, no, look, I thank you for bringing it to the board. It's something that I am supportive of on the whole. I think that, we have adults working for us. We have challenges getting employees out here. We have a limited schedule with, public transportation. So being able to offer this flexibility to our employees, I think, is a really good way to keep good long-term employees. We have to persuade people to come past Southampton, as David said, and, this helps. So.
Yeah. And this is not a work from home policy. So just so people understand that this is not from work from home, but it does also, one of the questions within the document is asking if the employee in the change of their schedule would result in a compressed schedule, which meaning, an employee could go instead to maybe possibly 4 10-hour days, if that's something that's feasible within that department, again, that they're still able to accomplish their duties and, the mission of the department that they work for. So, but again, this is not a work from home policy.
I agree with everything Tom just mentioned there then too, and it's good to have it in black and white. It's,
Right.
So that we have the policy set as we start to change into different, into these situations that we're seeing more and more, as Tom mentioned, because of, public transportation.
And again, trying to be equitable to the entire employee base, not just those that are able to take advantage of the South Fork commuter connection. Again, that there's some of their schedules, whether, it's in the season when the train schedule on the Friday changes, or during this time of year that, again, being able to afford the opportunity to all employees, to be able to take advantage of a flex schedule if it works.
Yeah, I'm fully supportive. I think it's great to have some flexibility, and nothing is automatic. So, the department heads still have control of their departments. They still have to make sure the department functions. But this is just a tool, and as David said, it's black and white, so people know what they can ask for.
So I'm supportive as well. If we could get this on for Thursday for adoption, and if that's too quick, we could do it on the 17th.
No, I mean, we really already have the policy drafted, which we can just use that as the basis of the resolution, and we could put that in for Thursday.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. All right, Rob, you're batting cleanup.
All right. So as the board may remember, Rick Whalen came in here twice and also for a public hearing to discuss his clients who own properties at 22 Bluff Road and 630 Montauk Highway in Amagansett. He also made the requests on the part of a family who owns a property at 28 Bluff Road. He's not his clients, but they were joining in the application. The properties are owned by Elizabeth Hamilton, who owns 22 Bluff Road, and Dennis Curls and Frederick C. and Gail Mitchell, Curls, who owns 630 Montauk Highway, Amagansett, as well as the McGarva and Santa Cola property at 28 Bluff Road. These properties are situated between Bluff Road and Montauk Highway, with frontage on each road. The town The request is that the town deed them approximately 33 feet of purported Bluff Road right-of-way so as to leave the town with a right-of-way in front of the Hamilton and Curls properties and McGarvin Santa Cola properties at 66 feet wide. Rick proffered a survey from the early 2000s that shows the last lot on the north side of Bluff Road. It's now owned by a family with the last name Branicasio. It showed that the then existing house is being located mainly within a surveyed right-of-way on Bluff Road. Later investigation showed that this was not the only house built in the 99-foot Bluff Road right-of-way. McGarvin Santa Cola properties at 28 Bluff Road, which is between the Hampton and Curls property, that contained 2 residences, one of which was built halfway into the alleged right-of-way of Bluff Road. In the Branicasio matter, the town board resolved the situation by deeding him at no charge a substantial portion of the Bluff Road of-way in 2008 pursuant to a 2007 authorizing resolution. In that instance, there was no public hearing done by the town board. Here we did have a public hearing. The maps and aerial photographs that Rick brought to the public hearing included a package that's small community of homes, including the present Hamilton and Curls Mitchell residences. They've existed at the East End Bluff Road since the early 1900s. The maps and photographs showed that the easterly end, the Bluff Road pavement veers distinctly into the southward, while the road's right-of-way continues in a perfectly straight line. At its easterly end, the paved surface of Bluff Road almost hugs the south side of the right-of-way as shown on those maps, leaving a large area of lawn, parking spaces, and landscaping associated with the Curls, Santa Cola, and Hamilton homes, technically in the ownership of the town. The applicants believe that the road right-of-way was incorrectly mapped somewhere around the middle of the late 20th century. In exchange for the deed, Rick's clients would grant the town a discharge and release that would foreclose any further claims by them to any additional area of Bluff Road, and the town would be left with more than adequate right-of-way of 66 feet wide adjoining their properties. This was also brought to the attention of the town's highway superintendent, Mr. Lynch, and he stated that he has no objection to the proposed conveyance of the 33 feet of land adjoining the south side of the Curls and Hamilton lots. And if the board was to agree to this, what would happen is Rick and the town attorney's office would prepare a quitclaim deed. Rick would have a surveyor prepare a legal description that would get recorded in the county, and then the tax maps would be changed.
All right, thank you, Rob. So we heard this, as Rob stated, on July 18th, and I wanted to bring this back for after hearing discussion to see if we wanted to move this forward.
Yeah, I mean, I am open to doing so. I do have some concerns, though, with that easement itself. I mean, I was going by there today, and, you know, the Branicasio property, which was developed so close up to Bluff Road, now has a landscaping vehicle parked in Bluff Road that people have to go around because there's no easement on their property. So if we're going to do this, I would want to ensure there's protections that that easement is not built out too far to allow parking off-road as required. But overall, as a concept, yes, I'm happy to continue pursuing this.
Thanks, Tom. David?
Go ahead again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive. Look, it always feels very odd if, you know, we are, you know, essentially giving something away. But anybody looking at the map realizes that there's something wrong there, and there's things that don't make sense. I think this is a fairly unique case here. We aren't giving as much back, or the property lines won't go as close to the road as the Branicasio property. So I hopefully that's addressed. And the fact that the highway superintendent, Steve Lynch, has signed off on it is very important to me, because ultimately, you know, we have to consider development and all that, but street safety and road safety is the most important thing. And you know, he said there's adequate room there for the road to exist. So I'm supportive.
Thank you.
So to go back to the Branicasio, I probably wouldn't have authorized that, agreed with exactly what you're saying, Tom. I think this is actually a very unique properties, these 3 properties in the situation that we're trying to almost cure right now then too, and that the portion of the corrected property area is the minimum amount that they need to correct non-conforming conditions that are on these properties right on multiple, 2 of these properties at least then too. the unique situations here is that these properties actually have structures, as our town attorney has just mentioned, that are actually not on their property, right, then too. So the minimum amount of the 33.4 or 30, just over 33 foot of area that they're asking for right now corrects these situations in here without any further legal litigation then too, and allows for these property owners to move forward as they want to develop any of their potentially estate planning as they move forward. It still allows for a 66-foot right-of-way. This allows for drainage in this location that's potentially needed. Don't forget Bluff Road here or Dog Hollow something highway. I apologize. The actual pavement here is not in the center of the road as we see in other times. It's actually more centered to the south. So if you did need to actually add on any potential town infrastructure there, is it a sidewalk, years, decades? In the future, we still have that allowable locations. What makes these properties also, these are also all non-conforming properties. They're non-conforming to lot area. They're also non-conforming to lot width. They still will stay non-conforming to lot width and lot area, which makes them unique. But what they will do is will correct some of the situations in which there actually are residences and structures that are on the town's right-of-ways then too. What I had what I initially was, I believe I even brought this up in discussion, is that these properties also will have two front yards. The front yards will be coming off of Bluff Road. They'll also be coming off of Montauk Highway. And so they're already going to be more confined in any potential redevelopment of these properties. Just the same as the other 2 to 3 properties that will be going to the west of there. But the difference in that is that these ones are unique in which they are substandard than to lot width and also lot area. What I wanted to make sure is that we weren't potentially granting this quitclaim deed to these properties that would actually change the character of these locations, in which you're granting lot area to them that they can use potentially for GFA. Going through it, you have a piece of property on here that is just about 5,700 square feet. A lot area, another piece of property is about 4,500 square feet lot area, and the other one just a little tad over 4,100 lot area. What goes back down to that none of these properties here can be built larger than approximately 2,200 square feet, which are very small in size and stature compared to what's around. But again, if we did add approximately what are we looking at here? 33 times 50, about 1,700 square feet of lot area. If you wouldn't be adding more than about 200 square feet in potential added GFA if you wanted to move this forward. Initially, I was thinking that I would rather not allow for any of this additions to these 3 properties to be added to potential GFA and covenant that. But I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate on here then too, and restrict that. I hope that makes sense to everyone on there. So with that stated, I think there is unique situations here that we're looking to right non-conforming situations here that I believe we need to do as far as what we should be looking at in the comp plan. And for all those reasons stated, I'd be okay with moving this ahead.
Okay, great. I'm in support of as well for all the reasons stated. Rob, if this is something you could put on for Thursday, if there's not enough time to do that, you can do it on the 17th.
I'll work on it for Thursday.
Okay, great. All right, so that wraps up our topics for today, and we are on to liaison reports. Tom?
Right, thank you. Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee meeting for this month will be a regular. It will actually be on the 3rd Monday, which is October 21st at 6:30 p.m. Same location at Amagansett School Library. I've had feedback from advisory committee members with regards to roads they're concerned with. Albert's Landing is an obvious one between Old Stone Highway and Cross Highway, Fresh Pond Road, and then Cross Highway as well. And then finding Wimmer Lane south of the Long Island Railroad near Selinger Park. I'll be bringing those to the Highway Department for discussion as to what the plan is for those. I also had a meeting this week with LKMA regarding updates for the Historic Lighting District. That plan, I've been promised, will be with me in a few weeks, and I will then bring that to the board for review. Human Services, congregate meals for the end of the weeks 9/23 through 9/27 is 93, and the grab and go was at 75, so a total of 168 seniors served in that last week. Friday, October 4th at St. Luke's Church from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There'll be a health fair sponsored by East Hampton Healthcare Foundation. You'll be able to get flu shots, glucose screening, blood pressure screening, HIV testing, HEP-C testing, mammography and pap smear appointments, colorectal screening applications. Ola will be there, Sun River Health will be there. There'll be representatives from health insurance, a nutrition educator, and a representative from the Town of East Hampton Human Services Program. Fire Marshal, we just want to remind everybody that October 6th through the 12th is Fire Prevention Week. There will be a work session on that next week. This year's theme for the week is smoke alarms, make them work for you. So just reminder to check the batteries in your smoke alarms. Sanitation, I continue to be in discussion with the Director of Sanitation regarding finding resources to clean up that location. Updates will be coming. ADU implementation, had a meeting with various department heads about the proposals the committee wishes me to bring to the board. And I also will be meeting with the supervisor tomorrow to review those for the presentation in the work session next week, October 8th. Marine Museum, very quickly, just wanted to give an update of what's been going on there, this town facilitated location. The East Hampton Town Museum completed its 17th annual educational summer program in collaboration with the Life Saving Station and the Historical Society. Their school programs and outreach education are in full swing. Against Elementary started a new program at the Marine Museum called September Sessions, designed to teach students about the local ecosystems and biodiversity. It's taught at the Town Marine Museum and at the school in the field. East Hampton School District will begin its year-long curriculum to work with Stacey Mars, the museum director. The focus grades are kindergarten through 5th grade. October 4th, there's a maritime history talk with the author and a collaboration with Bookhampton and East Hampton Historical Society. And October 5th, there's an open house with free tours for families, the East Hampton Marine Museum from 11 to 1 p.m. East End Fire Commissioners, we met last week. Just to invite my fellow board members that they are beginning, dispatch of East Hampton Village is beginning contract negotiations with the different fire districts. That will be coming with the town too. So those meetings will be set up accordingly. Special events and film, there is a meeting tomorrow to review year-end statistics and issues that we face with special events. If any residents have issues they would like me to raise, do feel free to either email myself or Councilperson Rogers. Disabilities Advisory Board will be posting the Universal Access Design Doc next week on the town website. I would actually like, if possible, at some point to do a work session on that too, just to walk people through it. That'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
East Hampton Youth Task Force, we are meeting October 9th at 11 a.m. at the high school. We'll be discussing current trends seen in the school safety, and the priorities for the 2024-2025 year. Anti-Bias Task Force, we've been conducting a series of LTV in diversity channel interviews recently. Brenda Simmons will be on there. Minerva from Ola, and Tom House from the Pride organization. The committee was also looking to do a presentation to the town board end of November, early December. The Arts Council Committee had their community networking, they had the copyright talk last week at LTV. That was a great success. Thank you to Carol Steinberg for organizing and coordinating that. Emergency preparedness. First of all, I think I speak for all the board to say that our thoughts with all of those devastated by the recent weather developments in North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. It is tragic, and it calls out the impact these kind of events can have on our geography. We had a meeting last week of the committee. We had the final sign-off of the educational component, including the recognized Red Cross shelters, which is great. We'd like to do a work session to the public, just to walk the public through that educational concept and get that posted on the town website and produce pamphlets. And lastly, tick control. Been saying this a while, but we finally have acceptance from representatives from the DEC, the Sportsman's Alliance, and the Town Nature Preserve Committee, and I will look to form that committee in next Tuesday's meeting with the goal of having our first meeting at the end of this month.
Thank you, Tom.
David?
Yes, I want to thank the East Hampton Town Lifeguards and specifically Chief John Ryan Jr. on there for a wonderful season at our town beaches. I want to make sure all the residents recognize that the East Hampton Town beaches are closed to lifeguards, that no lifeguards are on duty. So swimming is at your own risk. And again, once again, congratulations to all the East Hampton Town lifeguarding corps. Today is the opening of bow season in the town of East Hampton. All of our properties have been marked where bow season opens. If you have any questions of these locations, please go onto the town's website and you'll be able to see the town's hunting guides. I want to let everyone know that the New York State DOT drainage projects in Montauk are still ongoing right now. They'll probably be going for the next couple of weeks, along with the town's drainage projects we're doing on South Euclid that I've talked about recently in the past. The New York State DOT is also fully mobilized into the project at Stephen Hand's Path and Long Lane as far as the road widening aspect there, in which they're putting greater turning lanes into that area. So there might be delays there then too. I'm looking to potentially have on for Thursday a resolution on to hire an appraiser for the Army Corps of Engineers Montauk Inlet dredging project on there. If we can get that on, that'll be on for this Thursday for the properties that we actually have to acquire. Buildings and Grounds is in Montauk this week, actually. They're doing a great job working on the greens and some of the downtown plant areas. So I thank Steve O'Brien and his crew for all the work that they're doing out there then too. Lastly, I know Ian has signed up for the Turkey Trot in Montauk upcoming Thanksgiving. You can go onto the town's recreational website and sign up for this wonderful 5K event that happens every year. Ian will be doing his personal best there under.
Sign up twice.
You signed up twice. Nice, excellent.
Get your numbers out.
That's another wage. He's going to do it for the 10K. You're doing it for the 10K, not just the 5K. But yeah, please go to the town's website, recreational, to sign up for that. And that's all I have, Madam Supervisor.
Thank you, David.
The spring CAC met last week, I believe. Nancy Carney, the spring superintendent, was there, which was very, very nice to see. I know that the Springs community always has questions about related to school, and it was very nice to see the groups talking. Nancy was very open about coming back again and letting the Springs community know about school events for people who might not have children there. We also focused a lot on the New York Forward grant. I won't say too much more about that because we've already went into it today. Another thing that came up is the Old Stone Highway culvert replacement. We had a presentation here at the last work session, and it was sort of alluded to at that time. There's some unavailability of parts, and so just wanted to update everybody on the timeline there. That work should be starting very, very soon in terms of phragmite removal and sort of supporting the bridge walls that are leaning out. The part of the project that will actually lead to road closure, the culvert replacement itself, is going to be delayed because of the half pipe availability. I think that might be a blessing in disguise. Obviously, we talked a lot about the road closure and the effects on the school. The fact that we can do all of the work that involves sort of being in the water within DEC permits, get those done in the fall here, and maybe revisit that pipe replacement in the spring and coordinate it around school closure. So it'll be one final piece of the project, in and out, hopefully as quick as possible. So that's going to be a little bit delayed, and so nobody should worry about that road being closed this fall. I will keep everybody updated as things develop there. We had a property management committee, which is a committee that I recently formed. It had been in existence before this year. We met last Monday. That committee's main job is to focus on buildings that the town owns, usually on CPF lands, but aren't, like Town Hall wouldn't be one of them, but areas like the Dodge property where we're trying to come up with a management plan and other properties. So that was a very, very productive meeting. We basically just outlined things that we want to look at. I want to acknowledge here too for other board members. I know that certain projects or properties have their own independent committees that other board members are working on, and I'm committed to coordinating our efforts and not working, in parallel tracks. But I'll keep people posted as things develop there, but it was a very good group, and I thank everybody for their willingness to serve. I also just want to say that I went to the trustees' largest clam contest, and it was one of those things that makes you really happy to be in East Hampton. It was great work by the trustees, a ton of people there, and then the life-saving station venue. It was a perfect synergy. It was a wonderful place. It wasn't a particularly beautiful day, but it was fine. Everybody was having fun. Very much felt like East Hampton. And I haven't spent that much time on the Life Saving Station property, but it was really a beautiful place. It was great to go inside. And I just wanted to sort of say that out loud. I thank some of the trustees at that event, but anybody who didn't go, there were a lot of people who did, but anybody who didn't, you missed out, and you should definitely check it out next year. The last thing I want to talk about is the affordable housing density. We had a work session on that I believe it was last meeting, and there wasn't a lot of opposition to it. I think there were some comments about not creating, stricter screening standards. And so I just wanted to make sure, I was going to ask Eric to bring that to a public hearing, but I want to give other board members an opportunity to sort of voice any more concerns. Of course, the public hearing is the opportunity for the public to voice concerns. It's not at all a done deal, but it didn't seem to me that there was much to change there, except for some of those extra restrictions that were maybe contrary to the current affordable housing code that we had concerns about. So, if we talk about something and there's nothing to change, I'm sort of a fan of pushing it forward. So just wanted to give you all the opportunity to weigh in on that and let me know if you have any thoughts.
You want to do that now, or do you?
I need to revisit my notes.
About it?
But
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Same here.
All
But I can get comments too.
Yeah, for sure.
We can put it on for a work session topic for Tuesday and just have a follow-up discussion and see if it's ready to move forward.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly hold off on scheduling the public hearing. That goes for the public too. We presented the idea. I think the goal there is to refine the code if there's anything to refine, and then get it to a public hearing, whether it is up or down. So I won't force it, but I just want to keep that on the table, open to any changes that anybody has.
Great. Thank you, Ian. So on Friday, we issued a press release about the town is looking to acquire 66 Wayne Scott Main Street across from the chapel that goes onto the borders, the Wayne Scott Pond. This would be the largest community preservation fund purchase in town history. It's 30 acres. The ask price is $56 million. We would use CPF funds for the purpose of open space, agricultural lands, historic places and property, and the protection and improvement of water quality. The Wayne Scott Pond is owned by the trustees. They haven't really been able to get access to the water body since it's the most, as I said, most impaired water body in East Hampton, and they haven't been able to get access. I know Dr. Gobler did one water quality report. This would, if we acquired it, would give them access to that, and we could work with the trustees and with our CPF water quality funding to do mitigation and kind of bring that pond back. Septic systems, maybe some kind of, helping with runoff and whatnot. So I believe, David, you're going to be having a resolution to introduce that, to notice it for public hearing for October 17th. I know being out and about in town this past weekend, word has gotten out and people are ecstatic, I would have to say, because it really, folks feel that we're losing our sense of place here. And that is an iconic view. And, it's funny, when we were drafting the press release, I Googled images of Wayne Scott Pond, and what came up is a lot of watercolors and oil paintings, because when you drive down there, you see artists with their easels painting that landscape. So that is very exciting, and looking forward to that public hearing. I've also asked Hillary Osborne-Malecki with Scott Wilson to do an introduction to that public hearing on the 17th, so she could go into a little bit about the history of the property. Received from Chief Sarlo, the East Hampton Town Police Department statistics for last weekend. So this goes from Friday at 6 a.m. to Monday at 6 a.m. They've responded to 145 events, including 8 noise complaints. 1 was commercial, 7 were residential, and there were no violations. There were 25 medical aided cases, 7 motor vehicle accidents, 8 arrests, 4 of which were DWIs, 29 traffic citations issued, The St. Therese Montauk Festival took place over the weekend, as did, as Ian mentioned, the town trustees' largest clam contest, and there were no issues. I wanted to just bring back on September 10th at the town board work session in Montauk, Chief Sarlo and I made a presentation regarding the criteria for lowering speed limits to 25 miles per hour on select town roadways. We had proposed 3 potential criteria. One was the roadways identified in the New York State Senate and Assembly bills from 2016 through 2020. We looked at roadways that are multi-jurisdictional, one end of the roadways in the town, the other in the village, and then roadways that had substandard paved areas such as narrow lanes, no shoulders, landscaping encroaching on the town right away, and are heavily traveled by pedestrians and cyclists. During that discussion, board members requested a couple of other things to be looked at. One was roadways that are around schools, houses of worship, areas of general assembly and recreation areas, and roadways that are hilly, curvy, and where sight lines are an issue. I asked that, for everyone's October meeting, if you could let your chairs know and have this on the agenda to discuss. And then after the meeting, if you could just bring back their feedback to me so that we can continue this discussion and have this on for a topic for the November 12th town board work session. Just a reminder, we don't have a work session on election day, November 5th, as town offices are closed. Also, I just wanted to bring up, I have a resolution on today for the cottages on Route 114 in Wainscott. This is something that the East Hampton Housing Authority had moved forward. And back in August, I had sent a letter to County Executive Ed Romaine about East Hampton Housing Authority's acquisition and renovation of the cottages at 782 Route 114 in Wainscott. This property currently provides housing for low and moderate income residents who earn at or below 80% of area median income. The East Hampton Housing Authority plans to purchase the property this year with a proposal to secure its affordability in perpetuity. The property is owned by the Sag Harbor Community Housing Trust, and the cottages are ready for significant improvements. The Housing Authority applied to the county for Suffolk County Affordable and Workforce Housing and Acquisition and Infrastructure Programs. They actually asked for $315,000 for infrastructure, $315,000 for infrastructure, and another $315,000 for acquisition. And when we did our Community Housing Fund RFA process, they asked the town, I know we're not discussing this probably until December, but they asked the town for monies for acquisition. Their total ask from the county and the town was $1.13 million. The reason this is getting moved up is that I received a letter from the county executive on September 9th that they're supportive of funding this, the project with the cottages. That the county has a $5 million in capital funding to invest in affordable housing projects countywide, and recognizes the importance of expanding affordable housing opportunities, especially on the East End. But the ask of the town was that we had to let them know on or before October 1st whether we were willing to do matching funds with the county. So I have a resolution on for today. Just as backdrop, this went to the CHAB. Ian took it to the Community Housing Advisory Board, and they pulled this one application out of the 7 that they received. They reviewed it, and they sent us a letter that they were supportive of the project with Community Housing Fund monies. So the resolution today would have me send a letter to County Executive Romaine and let him know that it's something that we do want to do. And as I just checked my emails quickly earlier, because I'd gotten notified that Sarah Lansdale from the county had called today, because today's the due date, looking to see where we're at. So I will call Sarah after the meeting and let her know the results of the vote. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that I know Vicki Littman came up to talk and present to the clerk the petition that she'd collected. And I want folks to know that the town board has been actively trying to get the MTA to respond to our requests to get this project, the Cranberry Hole Bridge, the engineering plans done and the project funded. On September 20th, myself and Assemblyman Fred Thiel sent a joint letter to the Long Island Railroad President, Robert Free, to express to him our concerns over reconstruction design and engineering plan delays that have plagued the Cranberry Hole Road Bridge, and that we were seeking their assistance to expedite the process. I can certainly make the letters available to the press so that they could see it. Tom, I would hope that you would take this to your CAC meeting in October and let folks in Amagansett know that this is something that we've been pressing for, that they had given us dates when we anticipated seeing the engineering plans, and it kept getting postponed. And part of it now we learn is that the engineering department had grouped 4 bridges together, Cranberry Hole being one of them, and one of the bridges, the River Avenue Bridge, is identified in their records as an historic property, and that has delayed everything. And we have made a request of the Long Island Railroad, the MTA, to remove the River Avenue Bridge from the project and move forward with our bridge, the 3 bridges, so that, we can get this back on track, no pun intended. So,
Good, it was a good one.
Yeah. So, I just want the community to know that this is something that we've been pressing. We've been, in contact with the Long Island Railroad, as has Assemblyman Fred Thiel, and, we've been pressing on this.
Can I say one more thing, Kathy?
Sure.
Kathy Burke-Gonzalez brought up the cottages, and I should have said this in my liaison report. The CHAB committee had a special meeting. They've already added meetings to their schedule to review the applications, the RFAs were received. And then, as the supervisor pointed out, we were had a deadline pop up very, very quickly, and they were able to meet, schedule an extra date on very, very short notice. They gathered a quorum, had a very, very thoughtful conversation, and, I just want to say thank you to Andrew Garvey, the chair, and the whole committee for making that happen. It's really, really helpful to us, and they're volunteering their time, so I was remiss not to mention that originally in my report.
Okay. All right, so now we're up to resolutions.
Yes.
And Tom,
I'm ready.
Kate is out. I should have mentioned earlier, Kate is homesick. So Carol shared her resolutions among the rest of us.
Gotcha. Thank you. The other resolution I'm showing here is 2024-1212. This is for an easement. It's to accept the scenic and conservation easement at 19 Fenwick Road and 13 Fairview Avenue, whereas a public hearing was held by the town on September 19th on a proposed grant of scenic and conservation easements, whereas acceptance of the easement was submitted and heard and was found to be in the best interest of the town. Be it resolved, the town hereby accepts the easement listed below and directs the supervisor to execute the same on behalf of the town. The type of easement is a scenic and conservation easement. The date of the easement is July 15th, 2024. Location, as noted, 19 Fenwick Road and 13 Fairview Avenue, Montauk. Property tax number 300-19-08-221 and 22.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm grateful to offer Resolution 2024-1213. This is a accept donation of a memorial bench, a gift of Andrew Bazzani to the town of East Hampton, dedication to the name for Eric Bazzani to be placed at Fresh Pond Park.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 2024-1214. This is to accept a change order proposal for Coastal Science and Engineering, Inc. The change order is a proposal to survey the approximately 40-acre area, including the proposed dune template adjacent to the beach and upland area for a total cost not to exceed $7,900, and this is for the Ditch Plains project. That will bring the total up to $30,960.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I have Resolution 2024-1215, and I just need to amend this to reflect Wayne-Scott and not Sag Harbor. Authorize the supervisor to execute a binding commitment letter with the County of Suffolk for the cottages at 782 Route 114, Wayne-Scott.
Second.
As amended.
As amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that is our agenda for today. I don't know if there's any other.
Ian.
Yeah.
So that's our agenda for today, unless board members have any other comments. I will say that we have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday, October 3rd. Rosh Hashanah begins on Wednesday, October 2nd. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to be leaving our hearings open for a couple of days more. So just in case folks want to, comment and be on the public record. And we wish folks celebrating Rosh Hashanah a happy and healthy year. And we know that this is a challenging time with everything going on in the world and in Israel. And we offer our thoughts and during this trying time. So do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Yeah, motion to go into executive session for CPF, personnel, advice of counsel, contracts, and leases.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's a wrap. LTV?